500 to 600 nanometers. Green light falls into that. And I don't think a lot of people know that green light is actually used by the plant or absorbed by the plant. There's been a lot of misinformation that says that green light isn't used at all by the plant. And you've got those headlamps with the green light that's emitted because it's not supposed to impact the plant at all, but that's not actually the case. Can you talk to us about green light?
Yeah, so I'll debunk first of all. So in the early days of LEDs, grow lights, people didn't have efficient white LEDs. They only had relatively efficient blue and red LEDs. So that's all they used in grow lights. And in order to sell them, they took data, some sort of scientific reports and studies, and took them out of context and used them as a marketing tool to say that we are using blue and red in our LEDs, and they're more efficient than in other lights, for example, like HPS, because plants only absorb blue and red light and they don't absorb green. So all the green light out of a HPS is wasted. And because of that, basically you can use a much smaller wattage LED light than HID, which was total BS. It was based on, as I said, taking scientific studies and reports and criteria and using them totally out of context. Next bit that sort of confuses people is that plants are generally green, and it stands, it's common sense that something that's green is reflecting green light. And that is true. It does reflect some of the green light, but it also, green light tends to penetrate deeper into the leaf, and also will bounce around within the canopy. So it is very useful as part of the overall grow light recipe to have in there, because it'll get down into the leaf and photosynthesize parts of the leaf that the blue and red, for example, won't photosynthesize, and also down into lower parts of the plant which wouldn't photosynthesize otherwise. Next part to it is the green lamp that people use for inspecting their plants. Green light tends to be for the amount of photons output is the highest response visually. So if you took again 100 photons of blue, 100 photons of green, 100 photons of red, we would see much better under those 100 photons of green light. It gives us, our eyes are much more responsive to green light than other spectrum. So if you are going to use a light in an environment, it is better to use a green light because you can use less of it than a white light or a red light or a blue light just to see. So again, it's sort of putting two and two together and getting four to say that using a green light doesn't affect the plants. It will if you use enough of it, but you're able to use a very small amount of it to see, and therefore it's the best one to use if you have to do it. Lastly, the experiments that were done in so McCree curve, maybe people have seen, it's experiments that were done in the 70s which looked at the plant growth rate under discrete wavelengths of light. So they took maybe a 5 nanometer bandwidth of blue light, they shone it at a plant. It's actually algae in a solution, and they looked at the amount of oxygen it produced, so how much photosynthesis was occurring. And they looked at that discretely all the way up through the spectrum to see how responsive plants were to different discrete wavelengths of light. That's not what happens in reality. In reality, we don't mush a plant up, put it into a dish, and shine beams of narrow wavelength beams of light. The plant is in an environment where there's all different wavelengths of light, all interacting with the plant in a different way. And in those studies, it's shown that green light is just as effective as blue light, but there still is a higher level of photosynthetic efficiency with red photons. So green is, the last thing about green is that if you have only blue and red, you get a purple light, and purple light doesn't reflect any light off the leaves, and the leaves look black and you can't see your plants properly. So having green light in with blue and red means you get white, and white light means you can see your plants more clearly. And there's a proverb which is escaping me now, but about gardening, and it basically says, if you can't see what you're doing, you're not going to make mistakes. So having a clear white light where you can see, where there might be nutrient deficiencies. You can see where there might be some burning occurring, disease, any of those kind of things you can see much more clearly under white light. So for all those reasons, green light is a very useful part of the grow lighting recipe.
This clip is brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code MrGrow at 15 to save on any of their products.